Honestly, it sounds pretty similar. It's the combination of I really love Tenacity and I actually love being pitched because I love like seeing how people do it, understanding the angles. I have not ventured too far away from my first sales job selling Cutco knives and remembering about pitching people how
Honestly, it
to
sounds
buy
pretty
kitchen
similar.
knives.
That's
Um,
so funny about that because that's funny that you would sell Cutco because one of my very first, just recently, a kid calls me said, "I hear that you do some mentoring and you're welcome to, you're happy to work with kids, blah blah blah." I said, "Yeah, I will." So he said, "Well, I've got my instructor says I have to spend an hour with you selling you this knife." And I said, "Dude, let me share something with you. I'm going to talk to your instructor. I don't need you an hour to sell me a knife for an hour. If you can't close me in 5 minutes, we have a real problem. I'm going to outsell you 50 knives to one if you do that."
yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, well, the thing about Cutco is like, again, you're talking to a 19-year-old generally that has no sales experience. So I think generally running their program is a good entry point into sales to understand because it kind of slowly makes them walk through a script that makes them stick to this is how you sell something. But after a little bit of time, you start to do the reps, you start to understand why you're saying these things. And I think that's where the magic happens with them. I think it's the best sales sort of education you can possibly get if you don't come from that. The other piece is you're also in my favorite place in the world, so that's fun too.
How did you first come to Baja?
My dad was a developer down there and like loved vacationing down there. So I mean, I was down there in the Cabo area when there was like three hotels, and remember there was a parrot that lived on the beach named Poncho that was like my favorite. I was literally 4 years old, so this is 33 years ago.
Wow.
But now I have a place down there, and we get my wife, family, all of us go probably 5, 6 times a year because it's 2 hour flight from LA. It's easy.
I think it's great. The property that I'm on, they have built these three towers over here. I guess when they first built them, they're 7,000 square foot units, which is twice the size of my home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, wow, I have a very nice home, and it's only half that. I guess they sold for $1 million and now selling for 9.7.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's been a very good investment back then.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, even in the past few years, Cabo has just taken off. Like we were building a house that was going to be underwater, frankly, from a value perspective when we started, and is now worth double what we built it for within the time we built it. So
That
it's
is
pretty
amazing.
crazy.
All right, so give us a little bit of your journey. Introduce yourself to my audience. I just
Sure.
threw you into the deep end of the pool,
Yeah,
but I'm going to step back for a second and let you say hi and what you're up to, who you are, and where you came from.
sure. Can go way back. I mean, born in Los Angeles, grew up in a small town called Ojai. Always had an entrepreneurial bug. Like my dad was an entrepreneur, my grandfather was an entrepreneur. I just kind of thought that's what you did was build businesses. And so even as young as 6, I was trying to sell my parents' stuff door to door to make some money, not because I wanted to buy anything, but I thought there was a fun intrinsic game of just building wealth and building money. That started at literally like 5, 6 years old. And, fast forward, I wanted to be a musician, realized I wasn't that good when I was about 12, but in order to afford music equipment, I had to figure out jobs. So I ended up buying and selling Beanie Babies when the hype was going, when I was like 8, 9 years old, made thousands of dollars buying and selling Beanie Babies. And so just realized I had a knack for sales. And then got out of college. I'm skipping ahead, but graduated 1 week before Lehman Brothers collapsed in the whole banking industry and went into real estate. So that year I made about $350 living in LA, which was not enough to live off of. So racked up some debt, started scrambling, ended up launching an online music company that I raised $1 million for and built out for 2 years, hired a CEO to take it over, and then consecutively built and sold 2 different fashion e-commerce companies early in the sort of subscription e-commerce world. This was 2012 and 2013, and then started consulting and advising for a bunch of brands, big and small. Worked with like Red Bull, Verizon, HP, a bunch of big companies in LA, a bunch of startups, and just saw that the whole marketing ecosystem is completely broken. Like there's no barrier to entry. Everyone can say they're a marketer. 99% of them are full of it and have no idea what they're doing. And the few that are good are really hard to work with. They only want to work with the big guys. They want long contracts, high minimums, are expensive. And I was like, can't there be a team that's the best at what they do, but easy to work with? Like, why is that so hard to figure out? And that was our mission. And now, almost 11 years later, we've got Hawk Media, which has become the largest independent agency in the United States. We're the top performance marketing agency in the US. We got 250 full-time people. We've grown over 5,000 brands, managed over $3 billion. We have a venture fund where we invested in over 100 different marketing technology and e-commerce tech companies. And we started investing in our own AI systems about 8 years ago that we now have basically a full artificial intelligent backbone to the marketing that we do.
Damn, that sounds
Yeah,
rather
it's been fun.
impressive. Well, I'm glad that I got to meet you in one of the TV shows that we did in Las Vegas called Office Hours. That was fun with Mr. David
Yep.
Meltzer. He has a knack for connecting the right people at the right time, and he's been a very great big brother to me.
Yep.
Hawk Media is located in Los Angeles. Yeah. So what kind of
Yeah.
clients do you work with?
It's pretty agnostic, honestly. We work with tons of different types of companies, anywhere from a lot of consumer brands, so a lot of celebrity brands. We do Casamigos. We work with Cali Water with Vanessa Hudgens and Oliver Trevina. We do, again, a lot of direct-to-consumer brands. But then we work with financial services. We work with real estate companies. We work with restaurants and hotel groups. And we really just found that we are the best at taking marketing dollars and actually turning it into revenue and actually making money from those and not just focusing on vanity. And we've just continued to build a reputation and a skill set there that really works in just about any company.
Well, so let me just walk through this because I can go in a lot of different avenues, but I certainly have a company that is growing. We never really had paid advertising before about 6 months ago, and I've watched what's happened with our numbers. But I've also watched, and it's really important, this is my fifth year in this business now as we're walking into that. When you get successful, how to monitor how fast you get successful, because there's a whole new set of headaches.
Yes.
Every and what is that scale? Do you think it's like 1 to 1 million, 1 to 5, 5 to 10 kind of thing, or is it a different range?
I've found that it's every time you double, which obviously can be
Okay.
subjective, but it's like you kind of figure it out. And then to get to that next threshold of doubling the business, that's where the business has to shift completely and all new headaches happen. Like,
Right,
and
and they do, don't they?
oh yeah, no, it never ends. I mean, when like at some scale, when you're at Elon Musk and Tim Cook scale, you're dealing with geopolitical problems and arguing with heads of states. Like it's not like there is no finish line, and I think that's important to know in entrepreneurship. It's just different. And like I had a conversation with a small agency owner that I was talking to yesterday. That I get this sometimes where people try to compare and they're like, oh well, I mean, this is nothing compared to what you're dealing with. I'm like, no, no, no. With turn that around. Like just to be clear, I have bigger problems, but I also have more resources. So it's honestly, it feels the same. I feel the same stress I did 10 years ago when I was just, seven people around a conference table, now having 250 people. It's not like it gets more or less. It's just, it's all relative. So I actually think it's just, it changes, but it's like you always have to learn to manage stress and learn to manage the problems. You do have more problems, but you also have more people to help you with them.
So for you, if it's kind of always similar, what's your end goal? What is it that you love doing, and what do you want to be doing?
Yeah, so I'd say professionally, marketing world domination, we talk about as our mission. Like we just want to be the best at what we do, but easy to work with. And globally, like we want to build something really big. And thankfully, like we're having a lot of growth right now. We're growing like crazy in an industry that isn't right now, just because the economy, the B2B economy has been pretty tight the past couple of years. And we're finding ways to really grow. So it's been really fun that way. But personally, it's really, I want to experience everything life has to offer. That's been what drives me. And personally, professionally, it's like, and I mean that it sounds like a cliche, but what I mean is like, I am a hobby junkie, building a family, trying different things in business. That's why I mentioned like we have the software business, we have the investment side, we're also an owner in the women's soccer team in LA. Like I love like, let's try new things out that are exciting and see how it works and dive into things. And as long as my company's growing and building, I'm having fun because there's new challenges. Those new challenges is what drives me versus like if I'm doing the same thing over and over again and dealing with the same problems, that's miserable to me.
I'm sitting here mulling what you just said. I'm working on a new website. You always come to that, come to Jesus kind of, where are you? What do you want to be promoting to the world? What my mission is, I want to experience all that life has to offer. I've lived that mission, but nobody let me say it before. I'm literally saying it for the first time here because that's what everyone's like. So Forbes, where do you want to be in 5 years? I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
My kids are 21. Where did I want to be 5 years ago? Getting them through high school. Now I want to make
Yeah.
sure that my daughter is living around the world on a laptop. My son's in college. I just
Yep.
want to experience it because what
Yep.
else is there? Like you said, this is such a
Exactly.
conversation that there is no finish line. I want to wake up
Yep.
every morning with the love of my life, be healthy enough to play
Yep.
and lay in bed till 11 o'clock. I rolled
Yep.
over to him not long ago and I said, baby, you know, everybody talks about this 5 a.m. thing, man. Are we not successful because we don't get up at 5 a.m. and crying and crying? She's like, Forbes, you just won your first bikini fitness competition at 64. I
Yeah.
just won my 19th medal. We live an amazing life. We're on vacation. And I think successful people sleep until 11.
Yeah. By the way, I can tell you, like, objectively, I'm successful at this point. Like, I've done very well on a financial standpoint. I am not a 5 a.m. guy. I will wake up usually I wake up at 7 because I have a 2-year-old now and she wakes up at 7. But even now, like some mornings, my wife wakes up and I sleep till 8. Like, that's depends on the day. That's okay. Like, it's the idea that you have to follow these formulas because Mark Wahlberg wakes up at 3 a.m. And by the way, Mark and then Rob Dyrdek does the same thing. both are great. Both guys are impressive, good people that are grinding, and that works for them. They also go to bed at like 8. So it's like if you're a night person, that's okay. Everybody has their own formula. People also ask me to like personal branding. Like, do we have to build a personal brand? Because I've had a TV show and a best-selling book and all those things. Like, no, there's a billion paths to success. I have a podcast called Hawk Talk where we've interviewed like 150, 160 people that are at the top of their game in every type of industry, whether it's a
Hey,
top
Eric, I
Olympian, et
haven't
cetera.
gotten an invitation.
Yep, we'll get you on there. Don't
I'm
worry.
just kidding with
You're
you.
hard to get a hold of, to be clear. But
I know.
the thing I've learned the most is there's no single path to success. Everybody does it differently, and that's totally okay.
Well, and it is totally okay. And I will, but there's a caveat to that, that I do think, like trying on a whole bunch of clothes, that you should really experience. When I was
Yeah.
doing my fitness for the last 99 days, I did in fact shift everything because I believe
Yes.
in sprints, not marathons. If life is this marathon, and just like you've taken so many different paths, and I did take 21 years off to raise the two most wonderful kids who call me all the time, who love me, who are in business
Amazing.
with me. And you don't necessarily know. You take the recipe, you put it in the oven, and at some point you don't know how it's going to taste and come out. And if you didn't do everything right, it comes out different, and different is great as well. So it's been a beautiful lifelong conversation about what success means, and I think you've got your head on straight. So nice to connect
Appreciate
about
it.
it. So if
Yeah.
somebody says, "Hey, you know what? I'm at a point." So I've got Josh. I'm going to take my husband as a case study. Josh is a world champion bodybuilder, continues to win. He's 47 years old. He has a new idea. I'm not going to share publicly what the idea is, but it's a brand for a logo for a clothing company. And out there, we've done our research, which I recommend to all of our people. The research shows that two brands like Gymshark and Gorilla Wear are both almost billion-dollar clothing brands, and most people don't know them outside of the gym. Well, that's good
Yeah.
to know, because that means that there is much more of an audience than I thought. I don't need $1 billion, but a couple of 100 million would be nice.
Yeah.
So if we came to you with that, and he has very little
Yep.
because my company's not helping his company. I love him very
Yep.
much. I'm like, you know what, Joshua, you're like all my baby entrepreneurs who love this podcast, by the way. They've got an idea. He's working on getting the logo branded. He says, look, I've got this fitness training program, because here's what he does have. 4 years ago, he was in a horrible motorcycle accident, and he used the program that he's always done to rebuild in 8 months. The before and after is amazing.
Yeah.
I then use that exact same program, having never really worked out in the gym ever, and in 99 days won a competition. So it's like, dude, you don't do any push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups, any pull-downs, nothing with a straight bar, nothing with heavy weights. I'm sorry, everybody should know what you know. And that's the
Yeah.
premise of that program. And then we layered on this clothing brand and supplements. We come to
Yep.
you. Hi, Eric. What can you do for us, or how would you begin to work with us so that other people can also hear this?
Yeah. So first off, I always say you do need to get to a point where you can spend about at minimum $10,000 a month on marketing consistently before you hire anyone. And
Okay.
now I'll go into what you do before that, but that's super important because you need to have enough resources to be able to bring on the right people and have them have resources to be able to do things like run some ads to actually get things going. Because if you're not getting a lever on those people, you're wasting your money. So I would say don't hire anyone until you can spend that and spend it consistently. Before you can do that, what I like to point out is like there's two commodities and you may have one or the other, money or time. If you don't have money, your commodity is going to be time. And so if because again, you're not making money yet, I would say in those situations, it's figuring out ways to get it out there. So the example, given his example, would be if that program is as compelling as it sounds, how do you get that out there in a way that, and this is one idea to be clear, this is easy to poke holes in this, but I would say if that's as powerful as it sounds, which I'm a fitness guy, I'm doing my first triathlon in a week and I very much like being in the gym and exercising. But I do pull downs and I do push-ups and pull-ups and all that. And so getting into that kind of shape without doing all that's compelling. If you can get out there, there's two ways to do it. There's one is to charge for it and market it and, make money every time someone downloads your new program, but you're going to have a limited audience. But if you're going to monetize it through supplements and clothing and, equipment and other things, then you can give away that content for free as a way to get out there. And then if you do that, then the sort of harsh reality that also could be the great reality is if it's as compelling as it sounds, it should have a viral component where people are getting introduced to you all the time because everybody wants to share this great new workout trend that they could do. And if you ride that the right way, and then in that always talk about your brand and your clothing and all these things, that's where you can get a lot of grassroots build that can end up setting you up where you do have the budgets to then put gas on the fire, which is marketing. Marketing, I'd call a megaphone or gas on the fire. Like it's not what makes the company, it's what expands the company faster than it would organically. So it's more
Like,
about adding speed.
talked in some of the things that you've talked about outsourced CMO. What does that mean?
Yeah, so originally it was our tagline because that's what I was. It was a CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, and I was like, instead of trying to figure out how to afford $250,000 or plus a year CMO, I can be your fractional CMO and work with you on that. And then over time, we've worked with a lot of CMOs too. It's more of like an advisor to the Chief Marketing Officer as well. So it's like
So
having
let's,
senior strategic people on the marketing side.
so let's assume it would be nice, and I can foresee easily being able to generate 10,000 a month, but there's
Yeah,
still some CMO issues in that kind of company, his company. And almost everyone who comes to me, they need help before there's things that they just don't know because they're not a business person. Being a
totally.
fitness professional does not make you a business guy.
Yep.
So does he come to, and I think this is for a lot of the ears I'm hearing, does he come in and say, hey, look, if you can see the vision, hiring you as that fractional CMO might help me fill all the gaps in so we can do that. Is that one of the ways your company works?
Yeah, but what we would do, generally what we do is we just would, similar to what I say about giving away information for him, we do the same thing. Like, hey, here's what you need to go do. Go find some influencers in the fitness space that you're friends with, or even if you're not, that you can collaborate with so you can get their audience. Start building a funnel for this. Get people to buy it on your own. Because the sort of narrative, I'm not a businessman. Well, the moment you file an LLC and you start making products, you're a businessman. So like you got to get it together and go start figuring this out. And by the way, again, over a decade later with this company, I'm still figuring it out every day. Like I'm still making tons of mistakes. It's just part of it. So that's the idea that there's like some expert business people out there that just know everything is a fallacy. Nobody knows what they're
Oh,
talking
damn, I
about.
was so
Everyone's
hoping to find them.
yeah, right. And so and that doesn't mean people don't have experience they can pull from, but with when you're starting out, like that's so what we end up doing is giving a lot of guidance. Like here are the things you should do. Here's what we think we advise you to do, and then the moment you hit here, we can jump in and help. But I would get to this on your own.
Okay, that's actually, that's a interesting statement, but it'd be nice to, even if you thought it was something worthwhile to go, hey, let's take a review of this because
Yeah,
that's what
we do that. We do that. We'll do that anytime. Sincerely, like
now,
that's
are you on a lot of the TV shows taking pitches? Because it sounds like you should be.
a lot on those TV shows.
Yeah, like I just, 60, have you seen 60 Day Hustle on Amazon Prime that I did with
Yeah,
Rudy? Yeah,
yeah.
that's the kind I think you should be on those kind of shows.
Yeah, I was on. I have a show with Cedric the Entertainer called Kings of Barbecue, where I helped them launch his barbecue brand. Him and Anthony Anderson. So we have
Oh,
that on Hulu and A&E right now.
that's very funny. I love that idea.
Yeah, it was fun.
It's funny. I think Clinton Sparks is coming out with a new one where
Yeah,
he's having celebrities cook their favorite home cooked meal with,
yeah,
with gourmet chefs.
yeah,
I think that's hysterical. Well, good for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many. I mean, there's a lot of good. And the cool thing is, Amazon Prime is the example. There's no gatekeeper anymore. Like you can just get a part. You can upload pretty much whatever, as long as the quality's their show onto Amazon Prime, and then it's on you to market it and to make sure people watch it. I like the model. I think it's going to really democratize good content, but it's also going to it's going to be crowded. But there should be some good stuff that rises.
So, what advice universally do you give to somebody at his level? See, he's at a different level. My company's got a staff and moving, but we also could use that kind of review.
Yeah.
Are there other people like you, or do you think that you're incredibly unique in the space?
Can I say both?
Yeah, no, you can.
Yeah, I would say there's not a lot of us, but there are a few. I don't think that I'm completely independent, but I think that, listen, I'm unique in the sense of the confluence of how we work, our vision on the world, our ways of doing things, our ability to do things is definitely unique. That being said, are there other good marketing partners out there? Yeah, totally. We're not the only one, but are they few and far between? Yes. There's 90,000 digital agencies in the US, and I would say that over 99% of them are terrible, but there are some good ones.
Hard to tell. It's funny. They all wear the same kind of hat. Hard to tell the good ones because the ones that are not so
Right.
good are even better people than the ones that are good, I found.
Correct. Well, the only way they're in business is to be good at sales and not good at executing, and that's the problem. Is they're even better at selling themselves because they'll lie. That's one of the biggest problems in our space is over promising and under delivering. Oh yeah, we can totally make you a billionaire tomorrow. And people buy into it.
Let's create an agency called Rebound, kind of like relationships.
Yeah.
Like when we're a really bad
Oh,
one, I'm the rebound girl. Yeah.
yep. Yep, that's how we feel half the time because I haven't yet to meet an entrepreneur that doesn't have an experience with that agency. But yeah, what I tell them, we wrote a best-selling book called The Hawk Method. It's basically modern marketing 101. I can send them a copy, by the way, but it's the real gist of marketing.
That's so funny because somebody just recommended your book completely outside of you. I didn't realize
Really?
Hawk was you. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you're gonna love that. Somebody
That's awesome.
Must read. So you guys were to just hold the book up a little slower so we really
Yep,
can show it to all my YouTube audience.
there it
It's
is.
called Talk Method. You wrote it.
Yep.
And what's one of the big takeaways from that?
So I'd say the three big takeaways. The whole book premise is basically think of it as modern marketing 101, but it's about the three principles of marketing. So awareness, nurturing, and trust. Those are the three things that create a good marketing strategy. And so awareness, how do I introduce myself to a new potential customer at scale? Like I need tons of new customers. You're always going to need new people coming in because you're going to always be losing customers one way or another. So you have to constantly be creating new awareness that you exist. Then nurturing is what you do once someone's aware you exist to get them to actually buy from you and keep buying from you. So keeping in touch with them, email marketing, SMS, all those kind of things, just to keep your audience engaged so that when they're ready to purchase, they do. And the last piece, trust, before you've built a lot of your own trust, which is also synonymous with brand, it really comes from third-party validation. So the example here is you're talking about his fitness routine. That right there is one example. Even though people know, like, well, of course, you're in love with him, you're going to think it's great. Still, just knowing someone else thinks this is relevant and has had good experience builds that trust. If you can get more people to talk about it. So it's testimonials, reviews, PR, all these things where you're borrowing trust from someone else. That's really what builds it. But awareness, nurturing, and trust are the things you need to like look at. Even when you're starting, how do I let a few people know this exists? How do I get my name out there? Then how do I make sure that when my name's out there, I actually get those people and turn them into customers, because it doesn't just happen on its own. Nothing happens by itself organically, naturally. There is no field of dreams. If you build it, they will come kind of thing.
I had been listening to Alex Hormozy this morning, and one of
Yeah.
the things he talked is just, and he's a great listen, is one, always have something for free, which I've not really heard because I'm having a thing with my team about we have a lot of free things, a lot of free people coming in. I used to love when people came in and paid me $19. I found it was a much more fun way to close people. But I've been listening to him, and one of the things is nobody knows who you are. They don't, no matter how much you advertise. And it's so true because you'll talk about going, oh my God, I've just been advertising everywhere, and you still don't know I have a new book coming out. How's that
Yeah.
possible?
Yeah. One of my least favorite things to hear is, oh, you guys are everywhere. Like, I'm like, don't tell me that. I'm not done. Like, I don't want to hear that I'm everywhere. I want to hear that I'm nowhere. My favorite thing to hear is, oh, I've never heard of you guys. I'm like, thank God. Because if everyone's heard about me, that means that I've realized my full potential.
See, and I'm going to say the exact opposite as somebody who's been on television and sold millions of products.
Yeah.
If somebody doesn't know me, I'm like at a point now where it's like it's my fault because I have not been on that promotional bandwagon, and I had to get over all those stigmas of how hawking your own thing. No pun intended about that.
Yeah.
A hawk and a hawk. I wonder if we
Exactly.
can do that. I just actually just gifted you in my own chat Joshua's program as
Oh,
a free.
thank you.
Thank
I'll
you.
definitely try it. Yeah.
Well, I would love to have a conversation with you about it because what he does is so unique, and it has zero to do with me being in love with him. Because in fact, he was annoying when I was going in my competition. I said, "Honey, do you think I can do this?" And his response to me was, "Yeah. Well, I don't know how well you know me, but you tell me no, and all I hear is go. I'm going to prove you wrong." And that was some of my motivation because not that he didn't think I had it, quote unquote, in me, but I'm very distracted building a company, sitting behind a computer for the last 4 years. I have no time to go to the gym. And all of a sudden I'm required to go to the gym for 2 hours a day. You're like, huh.
I was gonna ask you, like, what time commitment did it take? So obviously that, and diet, I'm sure, is a huge piece.
Well, it's funny. I have a book. I literally wrote a very short book about this called Flip the Switch.
Nice.
About my situation because something happened. I was in a very bad tour bus accident. My face went through glass onto the street. But the miracle is my hand got cut, but my face, crazy enough, didn't. And I tore my shoulder in two places, which means I should have taken the next 6 months and just relaxed and done nothing. But something happened in my head about my doctor saying you're pre-diabetic, about my weight being the highest it'd been, about my fat percentage being, we had all that tested, and none of those results and her look on her face had me do anything about it. But all of a sudden, this accident, I literally woke up and Joshua said, in order for me to qualify for the Olympia, there's a hometown competition I need to do. It's a qualifier. It's in St. Pete. And by the way, there's a female category for over 60. And I'm like, that's nice.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm in the National Fitness Hall of Fame. I didn't work out a day in my life to do that. That's not true, but I sell more than anyone else. I'm just not a body specimen. And as I found myself remembering that I said that, I thought, but what if you were?
Yeah.
What if you walk the walk? You've always fought your weight. You're always in the acting industry. You had an eating issue, not a working out issue, because you love to dance and work out and do Pilates and do yoga, but weightlifting, not my thing. Mm-hmm. And I just had this moment that said, you really do love Joshua's program. You talk about it, but we don't really gear it towards women. Just do it. And I set out on day one. I had 99 days before a competition. So just like you have a marathon coming up,
Yep.
having a goal is the most important thing. It's got to be a
Yep.
solid goal.
100%.
And you need to tell other people that if you don't hit that goal, you're going to be mildly embarrassed
Yep.
because there's a day when the going gets tough and you're like, nah, I'm not getting out of bed.
Yep.
Well, every morning at 5 a.m. for 99 days, I had a sense of, okay, all right, you know what? You're going to look really stupid in this bikini. First of all, the bikini is so tiny, it doesn't even fit you. In order to get in it, not break it, and just have fun, I went on carnivore keto, a
Yep.
lot of protein. I mean, and the flipping the switch part, Eric, zero sugar, zero carbs, zero
Yep. Yep.
it was not even in my, I couldn't even see that food. It all looked so stupid, which is phenomenal because today, a month out of the competition, I'm at a resort and I'm like, oh, I'll have a nibble of that or that piece of
Yeah.
bread. Look, none of that existed. I had like freaking blinders on.
Yeah.
And do you have the same thing for your marathon?
It's triathlon this time, and then there'll be a marathon. But no, so for that you actually do want carbs with the kind of endurance stuff I'm doing.
Oh, no,
But
no, no, not carbs, just the focus of the intensity to
oh
train.
yeah, no, I was going to tell you. Funny enough, it was December. I stopped drinking alcohol 4 years ago, not because of any problems, but because I just was like, I don't like hangovers and I'm over this. But I realized I replaced alcohol, and I don't drink caffeine. So every time I went to a coffee meeting or drinks, I'd have a mocktail or a hot chocolate or something. All of a sudden, my sugar at 36 or 37, I'm pre-diabetic, and my body fat, it was like 25%. And I went, I'm done. So I cut sugar completely. So now I'm no alcohol, no sugar, no caffeine. And then I started training for this triathlon, which is forced. And I've already lifted like 3 days a week, but then I did that. Then I got into meal prep and started doing at least 5 days a week, just sticking to vegetables and protein. And I've dropped 20 pounds of fat, which I didn't even know I had, and like gotten in the best. I hate it because it's a cliche, but I'm 100% in the best shape of my life right now. And it's like, and as you said, setting a goal. I also like setting a goal that's slightly scary. Like I have no idea what a triathlon is. Like, I mean, other than like my friends have done it, et cetera. But I'm like, and I went for the one slightly longer than I thought I could just accomplish. And like, I have to train for this. So your point, like, tonight after my daughter goes to bed, I'm going for a run because I've got to train because my big day, the day is next Saturday. And it's also like, this goes to like anyone building a business too. Having accomplishments and achievements and challenges outside of work that have nothing to do with work are so good for mental health, where it's like you might be dealing with something at work, but at least you're making progress here. You might feel like you're up against a wall in work, but if you get fully involved with it, and don't get me wrong, I work, whatever it is, 70, 80 hours a week, probably more than that. But the idea that I have something else to go to when that work feels like I'm treading water and things aren't going the way I want them to, which happens to everybody regularly, there's other things that you're accomplishing and working towards. It really helps that balance too.
It's funny because for 4 years, as I was building this little empire of mine, not outside of my fitness company, because I have a fitness product company, but this whole coaching thing, we have about 40,000 students now. I built it with my daughter and a team now of 16 people. For 4 years, I didn't have any outside interests. I was working 18 hours a day. So it's very interesting that you just said for my mental health, that's kind of where it also got to where I need to do something else because it's too intense and too focused.
I was gonna say there's something that I've really come clear on. There's only two reasons companies fail. Two very easy reasons. Number one, that a lot of people know, is you get underwater financially, meaning that only happens if you have debt or investors. Because if you're running it by yourself and you build a business from scratch, then it shouldn't lose money, and you can always just shrink your expenses, and you should be able to sustain a business. So the only reason you're going to fail, number one, you get underwater where you can't pay your debt, or you're never going to be able to pay back your investors. Why am I doing this? That's number one. Number two, you give up. That's it. And so knowing that, I became really focused, and I figured that out pretty early, thankfully. I became really focused on, well, how do I make this sustainable for me so that I'm not looking for the exit constantly? And I don't mean financial exit. I mean like the door, and so, what things do I want to do in life? I want to, as I said, I want to experience everything. I want to be able to have kids and spend time with them. I want to be able to travel and see the world. I want to be able to run or do a triathlon, all these things. I'm like, I'm going to find a way to make that balance. And if that means my business doesn't grow quite as fast, that's okay. But what that did was the opposite, which is, 11 years into this, I haven't had to get outside help. I haven't had to get outside money because I've done everything I've wanted to do the past 11 years, and I've worked my butt off.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've never taken a dime from anyone else. And I'm sure there's ways to leverage, and there's people who are lots more successful in that arena than I am. I didn't come from the money world.
Uh-huh.
So to learn to understand how to leverage that. But I just, at some point when I wanted to start my fitness business, I financed my house and my kids' education. I just believed in what I was doing so much. And when you don't owe anything, you have a very different sense of flexibility, freedom, and mental health, to your
Yep.
point. How important is culture in a business?
I mean, it's everything, but I think that it gets sort of convoluted in what people mean. I think culture can be as simple as what are the expectations that your employees have of the business and that you have of your employees, and like what is the core that drives that. I think people think of culture sometimes as like the way you would think about culture in a country, which like what are the representations, like what music do they listen to, that kind of stuff. And I think that's where you go wrong. I think it's more like, for me, I think it's what the expectations from the top down, the good things, the good traits, the bad traits, that's the culture. And I think it does come from leadership down, because it's what they manage to, it's what you hold accountable. So, a culture could be a level of work ethic expectation. It could be an attention to detail. It could be a discipline, a tone about your customers. All these things are things that I believe comes from the leadership down, and it's the responsibility of the owners, the leaders of the company to drive that. And what I found is, at times we tried to adopt to make this a better place for everyone to want to work at, and that was always a mistake. Where it's like, no, run the company you want to run, and then the people that will resonate with that will be there, and the people that don't will leave, and that's okay. That's a good thing. And
It's
and I've in that I've learned the hard way a couple times, where we're trying to change things to please certain people, or the vocal minority speaks up, et cetera. I think we have that problem in our country and in politics, where the vocal minority that does not represent the country are now able to be heard, and that's a problem because it ends up changing things for the worse for the majority. And for here, what we found was when we stuck to our guns and went, this is what we're building, and this is why we're building it, and this is what we want to do, the people that jumped on board, the company's been way more successful. It's when we run into times when the people are not on board with what we're doing and we try to placate to that, that's when we end up in trouble.
I love that. I think that's amazing. Talking about the digital marketing space, you touched on it earlier today. Obviously, there was a wild west when this all started. My daughter and I
Yeah.
were both there. She started building websites and coding at age 12, which was pretty cool. And
Nice.
I had a beautiful chance to get to know people like Perry Belcher and Ryan Dice and Adrian Morris
Oh,
and a lot
well.
of people who
Yep.
started. Well, I started with everybody. I don't quite know how. I would go down a long list of people that I've encountered. All the big guys, mostly guys, by the way, a couple of girls. How
Yep.
has it evolved, and what can we be expecting as it's moving forward?
Yeah. The nice thing is it doesn't change as fast as people think. Like the two top advertising platforms today are Google and Meta. The two top advertising platforms 13 years ago, Google and Meta. So like it's not, people think that this is rapid changing, we got to keep up. And like they do, there are changes, but it's not that insane. And I think so taking a breath is a lot of times what people need to do. Now TikTok's really starting to come up, but God forbid you don't advertise on TikTok, you're going to be okay. There's plenty of you don't have to do everything right. What has changed though, kind of to that note, is you do have to have a more thoughtful strategy around how you market things these days. For a long time, sort of the heyday of digital marketer and Ryan Dice and Rowan and all these guys, you could just throw money at Facebook or Google and make money. That doesn't really work anymore. You need to have all the other systems in check. You have to have good email marketing, a good website, good SMS marketing, because it's what happened was back then there wasn't as much competition. It was still the Wild West. And so everyone was figuring it out. And there's a lot of opportunity in that, because if you can figure it out faster, you're going to win. Now, everyone has it figured out. People understand how to use these tools. And so unless you're doing things better than everyone, it's harder to make an ROI there. And so that's thankfully for us, like that's where we come in. Like that's been the benefit is like we know how this all works together. This is how it works. And the nice thing is we're still seeing the same success we saw years ago, but we also know that a lot of people aren't, because they're running playbooks that don't work anymore, where you could again just throw money at Facebook and make money.
How do you deal with challenges when they arise?
I try to figure out what's solvable and controllable right away and focus on solving it and controlling it right away. Honestly, like there's challenges that are in your control and ones that aren't. The ones that aren't, don't waste your time. Figure out what you need to do about it. Like meaning like, okay, knowing this information, even though I can't change that information, what do I need to do and change? But I like to move quickly. Like what I find, at least for me, and I think this is probably true for most people, if you avoid the problem or you don't attack it quickly, it not only does the problem get bigger, but it causes anxiety. It zaps energy. It's in the back of your head. It's not letting you march forward. And so when I ever see challenges or problems, I really try to find a way to get it off my plate and out of mind, and not from like a compartmentalized standpoint, but from like legitimately like that is not my responsibility anymore, whether it's bring in an executive or someone to help solve that, solve it myself, figure out what to do about it and move forward. But I like to be able to move forward. So I try to get those out of the way as quick as possible.
You know, you talk about the hawk method. I've got to go get the door because at my beautiful mother as I'm walking here. Because it's really nice to have beautiful cleaning people come and help you. Sí. En 15 minutos, por favor, gracias. My best Spanish. There you go. That and donde está la biblioteca? I'm really good. If I ever need
Always got to
book
find a library everywhere in the world.
I don't understand why we do that. I don't know why they didn't say
Yeah,
baño,
right.
but I did learn to speak really bizarre Spanish in my 10 years of being down in Mexico.
Yeah.
So Hawk Method, because I guess just want a couple of takeaways in our last, we have about 10 minutes before I need to leave you. Although I'm excited to book a discovery call with you to see if we can do something together, because I remember when I met you, I thought you had a phenomenal brain and a great, easy way about you. In your company, are you the visionary, the implementer, or in between?
I'd say visionary with some implementation talents. Like I am definitely, some visionaries are not doers. I am. I roll up my sleeves and get things done too. Our number one core value here is get shit done. So, but I have a
My
business
daughter's
partner.
company name, by the way.
Is it? That's amazing.
Created an entire company called GSD because she's a
Yep.
productivity expert. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. I think that's the difference between success and failure for most people is just getting shit done. So I definitely am not someone that's just idea guy, but I have a great business partner that's more of our COO, and I'm more working on the vision. Like, I guess the way to put it is I stand things up, but then pass them off. So I don't just say, I have an idea, go do it. I go do it, get it started, and then pass it off.
Well, that's pretty valid. I have a similar in my company. I would not be able to do what I do if my implementer hadn't come along and taken off all of that
Totally.
burden.
Yeah.
Because I think as an entrepreneur, you all need to listen to this. You all try to do too much. You cannot be cooking the meal and being the janitor of the same company, and you need every part of that to be working.
Yeah.
When you look at holes in a company, is there a common mistake that you might see that most entrepreneurs are making that like, man, why do they keep making this mistake?
Yeah, from a marketing perspective, very simple. It's the nurturing piece. It's they think if they just run ads or they just get their name out there, people just come and buy stuff. And it's not having email marketing and follow up and SMS marketing and staying in front of people. Salespeople get this to their core, hopefully, if you're a decent seller. But marketers just seem to miss that and think that like we ran Facebook ads, why didn't anyone buy anything? It's like you never followed up with them. They probably saw your ad, in passing and then never heard from you again. So it's really important to have that nurturing piece. That's what I see missing the most. As far as entrepreneurship, a couple things. I think one is not understanding contribution margin is a really big one, and look it up, but it's basically where you can invest money to actually, your investment dollars that go towards growth and top line revenue growth versus your fixed expenses and things that are just there regardless of it. Because I see this happen, especially in a tighter economy like the past couple of years, where everybody cuts their variable expenses, like their advertising and marketing, but keeps their fixed expenses because they're harder emotional decisions to make. Like I'm going to downsize my office or I'm going to cut my staff. And the problem is that they just cut things that are driving revenue growth to keep things that aren't. And so we see that a lot. And that's a really good way to watch a business self-inflict a massive decline, because then it starts to dive because you cut off your oxygen and then you're now trying to keep up all the time versus making those hard decisions.
Actually, that's a very, very clever, very smart way to look at it. You have little kids. What do you want? What's your hope for them?
Happiness, I think, is what we all hope. I mean, at the end of the day, I want, like, thankfully, I had a great upbringing. I like, how I ended up. And what I mean by that is I had a great childhood. I look back and my wife laughs. She calls it my charmed childhood just because it was like a picturesque small town, like having fun, being outdoors. And I want the best. But I saw, and this is not political, but I did see a great talk from Michelle Obama being interviewed by Melinda Gates, talking about like our jobs as parents is not to hide our kids away from pain. Like we need to raise people, not kids. And so that really resonated. I actually, little share that most people don't know, but got the first ER visit 2 nights ago with my daughter because she slipped in the shower and slammed her face into the ground, like chipped a tooth, bloody nose, bloody lip. Like I knew at some point we're going to deal with this with kids, but it was like, here it is, the week before her birthday. and weren't sure if she broke her jaw, she broke her nose, and it just hurts so much to watch your kid go through that. And she was fine in 5 minutes. Frankly, I was beside myself for a day, but now recognizing that like being there to try to put the guardrails on, but not like struggling to not totally shelter them, to let them feel a little bit of the pain and build the grit and build the resilience that you need to get through the world in a way that you can adapt to what's happening, because it's not easy. And I think that's what we see in society right now. Is I think we talk about the helicopter parenting and all that stuff and how it hurts, but I don't think we really articulate why. And what it is you have to experience pain, you have to experience struggle to be able to also enjoy and also make it through it. Because if you've experienced struggle in the past, when it happens again, it's not going to throw you off kilter and create a ton of mental health. And it's like, but as parents, we innately want to hide our kids from that. And it's such a hard balance. But I think finding like what I want for my daughter is to find ways to help her struggle, but also find ways to help her continue to pursue that happiness and be a happy kid as well.
I'm a little further down the line, and I will say
Yeah.
that they learn more by what you do than what you say. Watching the
Fair.
relationship between you and your wife and you and business people and
Yeah.
allowing her to come in and seeing what your business is. My daughter started traveling with me when she is 8. She is the
Love that.
CEO of my company at 18. She became that at 21. She is a digital nomad. She's in Scotland this week. She got her mom's bug for traveling. She and I have been to Portugal and Greece, but she's always done all the travel arrangements. I let her do that. And
Yeah.
now she's been on the road for the last 3 months, just loving life as a single woman, running a company of 16. So I must have done something good there. But I will tell you, I remember my son, and I love him as well. He's also in business and in college. He went through his first heartache, his first high school sweetheart. They decided to break up. And oh my God, I raised the most empathetic, beautiful boy because he was heart shattered. He couldn't stop crying and rock. And I'm like, and I'm sitting there. Part of me is being this wonderful mom going, it'll be okay. But the other side of me is sitting here going, good. So
Yes.
glad that you are going through this and you are feeling this because it's not the worst you'll ever feel. But now you know what heartache is, you know what loss is going to be because
Yep.
you experienced that, my boy, in your life. Be prepared.
Yep. Exactly. And knowing how to manage those emotions doesn't come without having them. That's the thing.
Right. It was a really, I felt so, I'm like, he's never, he may hear this broadcast, but it was that interesting moment because you do want to protect them and shield them. And then you realize that that's not how they're going to grow and go. So
Exactly.
good for you for getting that when they're little. I have a feeling you're going to raise amazing kids. Are your parents still alive?
Mom is. Dad is not.
Yeah, I miss the mom and dad seeing my kids. I will say that's probably the coolest thing. I'm
Yeah.
hoping I get to see my
Uh,
grandbabies.
yeah. No, that is literally the thing that hurts the most is my dad didn't get to meet his granddaughter, but mom is around a lot. We're all going on. We go to Cabo so much. We finally, after 15 years, we're doing a trip to Hawaii in a couple of weeks with my daughter and mom and all going.
Oh, well, that'll be a lot of fun. I did that
Yeah.
earlier this year as well. What island are you going to?
Big Island, going to Kona.
I will tell you the coolest thing too is that I know you were in San Diego at some point, but, or you're still there, but teaching the kids to surf. My kids learned to surf in
Yeah.
San Diego.
Yeah. No, we in Cabo, it was a great surf spot right next to you, actually, by the way, called
Really?
Cabo Surf. That is a great small wave, fun little hangout with a great lunch spot right on the beach.
All right. Well, I may have to check that out. I may have to come
Yeah.
down here and do some more exploring with people because I've discovered I have a lot of friends down here,
Yeah.
which is kind of fun. I had never even explored this part of the world. I spent a lot of time in Florida and, how Cancun is our thing.
Yeah.
Um, what's something that you would like to, as we're going to wrap this up shortly, what's a message for the world?
That's for the world. Honestly, the thing that's affected me the most recently is I feel like outrage culture has become such a thing that everybody's looking for the negative. Like, you're going to enjoy life a lot more if you look for the positive, if you find a way to force yourself to be an optimist, because it's like any muscle. Like, once you start doing it in a forcible way, it starts happening naturally. And it's like, I see things about like, oh, no one can afford a house anymore. No one can do this. Like all the stats that are out there that are so misleading and so untrue. We live in the most prosperous time in the history of the United States, in the history of the world. There's less poverty. There's more access to water and food and shelter and all these amenities and all these things. We are in such a blessed time. And somehow because of, envy and social media, people have gotten to a point where it's like, yeah, I get that I have all the things that no generation before me had, but I don't have what he has, or I don't have what she has. And it's become such a problem in terms of happiness and mental health, in terms of comparing. I think we need to get back somehow to look at what you have and figure out like, how do you make what you have work? And not just that, but like, how do you take ownership of where you are. And I think that, and I don't think that's changed. I think traditionally, majority of people have never taken ownership of their own situation. But I think like people would be a lot happier if they did, even if that situation isn't as prosperous as they want it to be, but they own that this is where I'm at and this is what I have, and I'm still lucky to have it. And the reason where that comes from, when I was 17, I taught school in India. You're dealing with like, you want to talk about poverty, like, especially this is 2004 in India. There's nothing in the US that compares to it. Sorry, nothing. But the difference is there's what's called the caste system, and there's a religious belief that what you're born with is what you were supposed to be born with because of karma. So instead of being like, oh, this is, the government's fault or capitalism or whatever, it's like, no, this is what I deserve because of something I did in my past life. And with that mindset, you end up with people that have absolutely nothing. And it's a completely different statement compared to nothing in the US, and they're happy. And so it was this amazing lesson I got at 17 that, when I say this now out loud, people go, yeah, easy for you to say. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I worked hard and built a lot. So like, thankfully I'm in a good place at life, but I still have that perspective of being a substitute teacher in India and seeing how people lived and going, there were people with polio with boards on their knees to drag their feet behind them, giggling and laughing and having a good time. It's like, and then people here complaining because they can't afford a second iPhone. It's like, I don't.
I'm sorry.
That would be, if I could spread a message, it's like, really reflect on what you're fortunate, what's fortunate about what you have. That's, I think, the most important thing, and do it every day. Count your blessings. I think it's really actually important to look at, even if it's the basics. I woke up another morning and I'm healthy. Even if you're not healthy, I'm still alive. I still have a roof over my head. Even if you don't have a roof over your head, I live in an environment where the sun's out, so I can live in a tent and be okay. Like, I'm not saying comparatively it's good, but you're going to be able to make more progress in life if you can look at it that way. If not, you're going to be stuck, and it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy.
What do you want your kids to say about you?
Honestly, just want a lot of love there. Like, I think I haven't thought about that. I appreciate the question. What do I want them to say? I hope that I teach them a lot and I enable them a lot. I want to feel like that's my goal. Is, again, it goes back to like that enablement. It's not do for them. I don't want to do anything for them. Like, I try, again, my daughter's about to be 2, and I try not to help her with certain things that I know she can do herself, even if she struggles a little bit. Like, just those little
I'll give
things.
you a little
Like,
parenting thing. At some point, I will have to write a book. My son called me from
yeah.
college not long ago and said, Mom, I want to thank you. For what, Riker? And he said, thank you for not punishing us. I said, well, that's not quite true. He said, no, you, if I remember correctly, Mom, made us punish ourselves. I'm like, oh, right. I kind of did that. Well, because I remember when they were little and they're twins, so the exact same age, I said, I don't, you did something bad. Now I'm the one who's supposed to punish you and take away your cell phone or take away your privileges. Why am I the bad guy now? Because you did something bad. That doesn't seem to make sense. So I'm going to be the neutral mediator. I'm going to say, you need to create your own punishment. And they would literally say things like, all right, Mom, you know what? I didn't take out the trash. I have to sit in my room and not watch TV for a night. Or, Mom, here's my cell phone for the week. Or here's the keys to the car. And that's what we would do. I had no desire to punish them. Now, obviously, they also came to understand the consequences had to match the punishment. If you say, oh, you didn't do something and I just want you to give me a kiss, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
But he called me because he said, Mom, other kids didn't have that. They're running amok. They're wild. There's no consequences. They're doing stupid things. They don't realize. He said, I have no desire to do that.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, probably one of the best things that I ever did was make my kids create their own punishment.
Well, and I talked about it as a form of like the motivation side, but it also goes to exactly the negative side. It's like, if my kids learn not to do stuff because I'm watching, that's a terrible lesson. Like,
isn't it?
Yeah.
That's like you only do, but you only run the stop sign if there's not a police there. Well, that's not how it works.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Well, there's a whole lot of lessons. It sounds like you and your wife are on a great path together. How did you meet her?
Tinder, but over 10 years ago, like in the early days of Tinder. But yeah, she's awesome. It's been a great 10 and a half years.
So you guys get to be like the testimonial on the Tinder website. It really does work.
Yeah, we're waiting for that one. My cousin with her ministry definitely mentioned. I now know the founder of Tinder pretty well, and so he actually sent me this necklace recently. But I'm fidgeting with my hands all the time. But yeah, I think at some point we could be that. It was funny because it was before it was considered like a hookup app. We were no idea what was going to happen, but met up. A lot longer story, but it's been very fun.
I think that's brilliant. I look forward to getting to know you a little better. You're very fascinating. You've got a huge heart in the right place. And so I have a feeling that your dad and my dad are both watching down on us, wishing us all the best and moving the generation next forward. Final 30 seconds. Just any thought for the world.
Final 30-second thought for the world. Yeah, in terms of entrepreneurship, just go out and do it. Like that's the other advice I'd give here is like I was taught to swing the bat. You have to go for it. Some things will land, some things won't. Just go for it. That so many people get caught up with planning and analysis paralysis. Take one foot in front of the other. Don't think about the bigger picture. Just go get your first customer, go get your second customer, go fix the first problem, and just move forward. And you'll look up 11 years and have 250 employees and be like, what happened?
I love that. Well, that signals that's the end of our show. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. You've been listening to the Forbes Factor. Eric, one more time, how do we find your book?
It's on Amazon. The Hawk Method is the name of it.
Hawk Method.